Hey friends, welcome into Cross My Heart Ministry. Well, as we come to the month of April, you know it's time to release our free download that I call the Do It List. So this is the April Do It List, and you'll notice how the graphics correspond beautifully with our April Write the Word bookmark. So I hope that you find both of these free resources a huge help to you and a huge blessing in your life each month. I like to call these a little bit of Mary and a little bit of Martha, because Mary was sitting at the feet of Jesus. We're all about the Word here at Cross My Heart. We do this bookmark each month, hoping to make it easy for you to abide in the Word. We choose a word each month. For the month of April, it's the word peace. What could be more perfect than the month we celebrate the resurrection of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Prince of Peace, who made it possible for us to have peace with God through his death, burial, and resurrection. So there's that bookmark. You can find the link below to download your own copy of this. There's also a video where we introduce this bookmark, and you can watch that as well. Now, the other one, the freebie, is the Do It List. And if you're familiar with this, or if you're not, this is intended to all in one page, make it easy for you to take care of your home, to maintain home, and get on with what's more important. We have daily, weekly, and monthly tasks captured on one page. It's not a 3-ring binder. It's not complicated. And you don't have to put the pressure on yourself to do everything. In fact, grab yourself a Sharpie, cross off the lines that don't apply to you, and there are blank lines to add things that we didn't anticipate that you might want to add to your maintain your home checklist. Now, every month I talk about this, and I always say that the Do It List is sort of a so that. You do all this so that your life and your time is freed up to do what's more important. And that more important thing is to love people and to invest in people and to use your home, your kitchen counter, your kitchen table, your crock pot for the glory of God. There's no better resource that we have, regardless of the size of your home or how many people you can seat around your table, how many bathrooms, what your square footage. Use what you have for his glory. God has given us a home in our space, and it's a beautiful place to love on another person, to invite that person in, to have that conversation, to encourage a woman who needs encouraged, to share the gospel with someone who doesn't know Jesus or has questions about what that means. But if our home is a wreck or it just feels upside down, we might be not inclined to do that. So doing the to-do list and doing a little each day, giving up on having it all done in one day. I often tell people, if Tuesday was my clean up the house day and I had to go through the entire house and do everything in a day, I don't think I would even want to get out of bed on Tuesday. But just chipping away a little each day makes maintenance mode a lot easier than get there mode. Don't put that pressure on yourself. My advice, do a little each day, and in just a couple of weeks, you're going to start to see a transformation. And it will be a pleasure to throw open the door and welcome people into your home. Now, when it comes to hospitality, you want to love on the person. Don't worry about making a gourmet dinner. Don't worry about impressing them with what a great cook you are or how you decorate. I have a favorite recipe that I love to make when I'm having company. In fact, I made it recently and recorded it and saved it just for today. I want to show you how easy it is to make one of my favorite company dishes. I call it Swiss chicken. It has just a few ingredients, but you layer those on. The great thing about Swiss chicken is you can make it the night before. Put it in the fridge, cover it with foil, and then pull it out the next day. It bakes at 350 for an hour, and you are good to go. So watch me make that recipe. We're going to include the link below where you can download your very own copy. But basically, you're just layering everything in an 8.5 by 11. Chicken, Swiss cheese, cream of chicken and cream of mushroom mixed together, or cream of chicken and cream of celery if you prefer that. Sprinkle on some cornbread stuffing mix. I like the Pepperidge Farm, but there are also store brands for that. Drizzle on some butter, and voila, you are done. Bake that at 350 for an hour, and it is delicious. Throw in some rice or mashed potatoes if you prefer a vegetable or salad, and that's dinner. And so easy, so easy. So my challenge to you this month, my friend, is start using this Do It List if you have not, and then 2 to 3 weeks in, you are going to feel pleasure at the thought of inviting someone over. Invite another family over for an evening or for Sunday after church. Just a time to invest in someone else, another couple, whatever. Pray and ask the Lord, who should we invite over? Who can we invite into our home and have a pleasant conversation around our kitchen table? The art or the gift of hospitality is going a little bit out of style. Let's bring it back. Let's bring people into our home. Let's throw open the door without shame. Let's invite people in. And let's practice what it says over in the book of Peter, to offer hospitality to one another without grumbling. I sure did enough grumbling in my earlier days when we were having people over because I barked orders like a 5-star general. But thanks to our do it list, you don't have to worry about prepping because your house is in maintenance mode. And thanks to my Swiss chicken, it's going to be easy peasy to serve up a delicious meal when you invite someone into your home. Now, I just want to remind you that the purpose of the Do It list is not only to keep your home tidy and neat and clean, it's to free you up to focus on things that are more important than other things. Over in the book of 1 Peter, Peter the apostle writes to us, challenges us, encourages us, spurs us on to offer hospitality to one another without grumbling. And that's the key right there, without grumbling. And if you're like me, when we would be having guests in our home, that would be the day that mother turned into sergeant mother, sergeant mom, barking orders, maybe like a 5-star general. And I was just getting so stressed out that it robbed not just me, but the whole family of the joy of breaking bread with our friends. And I got better at it as we got older. I began to realize that the difference between hospitality and entertaining. And by the way, if you don't know that, let me just take a minute and share with you in a nutshell. Entertaining is all about, look at me. Look what a great housekeeper I am. Look what a great decorator I am. Look how beautiful my home is. Look how organized I am. And look at what a great cook I am. On the other end of the spectrum, hospitality says, come in, feel loved, be welcome. The focus is not on me. The focus is on my guest. And so I do want to serve you a good meal. I do want you to be able to feel like that meal has been prepared in a kitchen that is clean. But if there's some clutter on the counter or there's some shoes that didn't make their way to the closet, I've learned that makes that person feel very normal and not intimidated. It makes her realize you're not perfect. We really can be friends. I want to give Karen Burton Maines the credit for that teaching. I read her book, Open Heart, Open Home, way back in the 80s. And I've never forgotten that truth, and I'm grateful for what I learned from her. Now, on the topic of hospitality, I feel like it's an area that we might need some help in. It's been my observation that if we want to get together with friends and Christian friends and love on them, all too often we just go out for a meal. And that's okay, but sometimes in a public place, it's not the best place to have meaningful conversation. And it's not the best case to sort of listen to your friend and keep an eye on your children. And so, therefore, having folks into your home might just be the best way to really love on them well, to have those conversations that are meaningful. But sometimes it also just feels like so much work. And if you do all the work to get the house tidy and neat, then you got to figure out what you're going to serve. And so if you're using the Do It list, you've probably got your home at least reasonably tidy and reasonably clean, and you're not going to be embarrassed to have people in. But maybe what you really need is a good recipe. What do you serve? And sometimes that's the hardest part. It's a little intimidating to figure out, what do I fix for this woman, especially if she's a fabulous cook. My friend Ann and her husband had us over recently for a meal, and every time I put my feet under Ann's table, I'm just reminded of what a great gourmet cook she is. And I could let that intimidate me a little bit, but I'm just going to lean into the fellowship and serve what I can when I return the favor. So if you have someone that you want to invite over, or you have family that it's your turn to host the get-together, I want to share a recipe with you that is super easy and so great because it goes together so quickly. Best of all, the thing I like most about this recipe is you can do it the day before. So many times the recipe we're going to serve for company, there are those last minute things that we have to do. We sort of are assembling and finishing up right at the last minute so it's ready to serve right when they get there. And then you've got all the dishes, the dirty dishes out in the way. So this recipe is so great. You can assemble it the day before. It's in the fridge. You pull it out, ready to bake, and voila, you are good to go. Everything is cleaned up and out of the way. I call this Swiss chicken. I adapted it from a recipe my mother-in-law shared with me way back, I think in the late 80s. I think Kevin and I were newlyweds when I first started making this recipe. I tweaked it, left out a couple ingredients, added some of my own. So here you go. Calling it Swiss chicken, super easy. The ingredients, and I'll share that with you as we go along, but just briefly, I'm starting with some chicken tenderloins. Now you can use plain old chicken breast, boneless, for this as well. I have found that if you put a big old chicken breast in here and the person dips into the casserole to pick it up, they get this big honking chicken breast and they might not want that much. So the chicken tenders are smaller pieces and it's not going to go to waste. And it saves me the time of having to cut them into pieces before I put it in. So for that reason, I love the chicken tenderloins, especially if you're having a family over with little children, because you don't want that to go to waste. They're just going to get a little of what they need, and the adults might get 2 or 3 tenderloins for their serving. So we're going to do the chicken tenderloins. The Swiss cheese gives it its name that I've given to it, Swiss chicken. We're going to add 2 cans of cream soups, cream of chicken and cream of mushroom. Shh, don't tell my husband there are mushrooms in it because he hates them. Kevin always says if God intended us to eat mushrooms, he wouldn't have made so many of them poisonous. Then we're going to sprinkle on some of this cornbread stuffing mix. This is the Aldi brand, but you can get the Pepperidge Farms brand at your local grocery store as well. So the cornbread stuffing mix gets sprinkled on top. And then the last thing, we're just going to do about 3/4 of a cup of melted butter and just sprinkle that across the top. And ladies, that's it. It's going to bake up for an hour and you're going to call it good. If you have it in the fridge, it might take a little longer to bake unless you lay it out and sort of let it come to room temperature. Or sometimes I go ahead and put it in the oven covered with some foil and let it sort of slowly come to temperature along as it's preheating. In other words, I don't preheat the oven and then put the pan in. I'll put the casserole in there and let it sort of warm up as the oven preheats. But it takes about an hour, and you can always use your meat thermometer if you're concerned about a thicker chicken breast, and just make sure that it's done. But let me show you how easy this is. I'm going to spray my casserole dish. Now, normally I would do this with an 8.5 by 11. I'm going to spread this out a little more and spread it. This is a larger pan because I'm having more couples for dinner this time. I'm just going to try to sort of make it work. Sometimes I'll just use 1 can of soup if that's what I have, but I'm going to use 2 cans because I'm making it a little bigger. Now, this is raw chicken, and so you're going to want to be sure that you sanitize after. I'm using my knife, and I'm going to clean that knife well. I've got my Clorox wipes out, and so after this is all finished, this chicken mess, I'm going to wipe this up well, make sure my counter is all sterilized. But I'm going to open this up. I've got way more chicken tenderloins than I need, but I'm going to freeze the rest of them or use them for something else, maybe make some chicken salad for lunches or what have you. But we're just going to lift each of these up one by one, put them in here really kind of tight, and make a really close-knit little grouping of all of these. They're not going to quite go all the way across, so the ones on the second row might be a little squeezed in there tightly. When I make this recipe, just wanted to mention, it's so easy to come up with a couple of side dishes. If your family is a potato family, you could do mashed potatoes. If your family is a rice family, cook up some rice, because either way, the 2 cream soups that sort of cook over this sort of make this nice little gravy type substance that is just delicious over the rice or the potatoes, or just sort of mixed with it a little bit. My kids called that the goop. So when they were growing up, I would serve this, and when we dished it up, they would say, "Now give me all my goop. Don't leave any of the goop in the pan." So in the pan, they would say, "Serve it all up and don't leave any of the goop under my piece of chicken in the pan. I want all my goop." And so for some reason, that's just what we called it the goop. So here you go. You can see my chicken tenderloins all squeezed in there together. So that's done. Lots of chicken breasts left. Now I've got just sliced Swiss cheese, and I'm going to open this up. By the way, I didn't touch any of the chicken, so my hands are still sanitized since I used my tongs. So I'm good to go. I'm not going to infect my Swiss cheese. My hands are clean. And I'm just going to take this, and these are just going to be laid right on top of the chicken. And it's going to melt and create this delicious flavor. And the last one is just going to need a half. I'm going to tear that right in half, depending on the size of your pan. You just fit it in. So there you go. Now you've got the cheese on top of the chicken. Next, cream of chicken and cream of mushroom. Now, if your family absolutely does not do cream of mushroom, or if you open up your cabinet and you don't have a can of cream of mushroom, then you can use cream of chicken. I have even in a pinch used another type of cream soup. I can't even remember what the other one is, but there's 3 types of cream soups that I've seen at the grocery store, and whichever one you have, that's the one that will work. And if you're making a smaller container of this, you can just adapt it and use a partial can or just 1 can if it's smaller. I like to mix these together when I use 2 different types, just to make sure that the flavor is even throughout. Probably doesn't matter, but that's just what I've always done. So let me get this all cleaned out. The chicken is kind of sticky, and then comes the cream of mushroom, and it comes out a little more steadily here. So may have needed a larger bowl, but we'll make it work. So I'm just going to mix this together a little bit. Again, you might not even need to do this, but I'm just going to mix it slightly to get this going. I have already melted my butter, so when we get to this, we're going to be good to go. Also, when I bake this, I do cover it with foil because the cornbread crumbs might get a little too dark. So if you go ahead and cover it with foil to store it in the fridge, it's already covered and ready to go when you bake the next day. If you're going to bake it immediately, don't forget to cover it with foil. That will be in the recipe, and we will, of course, as always, include the recipe for you as a PDF in the notes section below the video so you can print your very own copy. Okay, that's all out of the bowl. Big noise. That's what happens when you record live. Okay, didn't break the saucer though. So I'm just going to spread my little soup mixture out evenly across here. Now, if you're trying to cut down on some calories, you can, of course, use only 1 can of soup, or you can use the reduced fat or the low sodium soup or whatever. But, you know, I have decided it might just be easier to eat whatever I want and eat half as much. I would rather exercise portion control than to eat something tasteless. That's just the conclusion I've come to in my old years of life. So here we go. This is spread out evenly. I'm going to show you again what it looks like. There's the cream soups over top of the chicken and the Swiss cheese. And now cornbread stuffing mix. I want to encourage you to use a pair of scissors to open up this bag, because you just never know what might happen when you open up a bag and you have a big mess. So I always just use my hands because I just can't seem to sprinkle out of the bag without making a mess. And I'm just going to sort of spread this out little by little, just basically enough to sort of cover the soup into each corner. You may see the soup a little bit. You can do it thicker if you want, but I don't think it needs a heavy breaded topping here. It adds a little crunch, adds a little flavor, but good enough. One more here and another one here. I've got a cornbread crumb on the floor that I'll have to sweep up later, but that's okay. So see how fast this is and how easy? So there's the cornbread on top of this soup. And then the last thing to do is just simply to drizzle the butter over top. And you can cut down on the butter a little bit if you want. I think the original recipe may have called for about a cup, and I cut it down to 3/4 of a cup. If I'm doing a much smaller container, I may only do a half a cup. The other idea for this recipe, because it layers in so easily, is to do it in 2 9x9 pans. So if you're making a meal to take to a family that just had a new baby, for example, that young couple is going to get tired of Swiss chicken before they eat the whole thing.
So you could easily do it in 2 pans, have one for you and your husband if you're an empty nester like me, and have one to take and give away to her. Works beautifully in a disposable pan, so she wouldn't even have to bring it back to you. This is a recipe that I use when my children were growing up for just a weeknight quick meal. If we had a full day, I could make it the day ahead and then pop it in the oven. And by the time I got the rice or the potatoes peeled and boiled or the vegetable made, it was ready to go. Just takes an hour to bake. I love to use it for company. It's a great weeknight meal. Perfect because it goes together quickly and you can do it a day ahead. So ladies, this is my Swiss chicken. It just needs to go in the oven, bake at 350 for 1 hour, and voila. Swiss chicken is what's for dinner. Thanks for spending part of your day with me. For Cross My Heart Ministry, I'm Laura McFarland. And whether you serve Swiss chicken or whether you run through the drive-thru and pick up something to serve, I hope that this might be the year that you decide to lean into some biblical hospitality and love on others as they plant their feet under your kitchen table, and you lean into those conversations that are sweet and special and knit your hearts together for the Lord. Thanks for spending part of your day with us, and I hope that during the month of April, you will accept our Write the Word challenge and also our hospitality challenge. And I hope that our Do It list will help you get ready to do just that. But friends, I hope you have a blessed month of April, and I hope you have a blessed Easter as we celebrate our risen Savior. To Him be all the glory. For Cross My Heart Ministry, I'm Laura McFarland.